Привет, друзья! Как дела? Welcome back to Be Fluent in Russian podcast. Today is our Monday edition of our podcast, which means I'm not going to speak Russian today. So let's take something that is hard for all of you, and it's things that you've been struggling with, and talk about them, how to avoid them. And if you also find yourself having a similar problem to what I'm about to talk about, then you will know how to deal with it, okay? We've asked on our Telegram channel, what has been, let me read this, Друзья, what's been your hardest struggle so far with your Russian? Comments below. And we have 10 comments about this. And I'm gonna go over each of them and talk about them today. A lot of them are similar, but I will still go in order from like top to bottom and answer each. Of course, if we come across a similar issue, I'm gonna skip that. Okay, so the very first comment was staying motivated. That's kind of a common one. Staying motivated. One of the reasons I started learning Russian was to travel there, a lifetime wish of mine. But as I live in the West, unfortunately, this seems very unlikely for the foreseeable future. Of course, traveling and your learning for travels can be hard right now. I would say ever since 2020 with the COVID times up until now, it's been kind of unimaginable. It's impossible to travel to Russia right now. And of course, if that's your only motivation, then I can 100% understand why you would want to take a break or pause until the opportunity to travel to Russia opens up again. So don't feel bad. I would say don't force yourself if you don't feel like doing it right now. Don't force yourself to do it. And maybe in a year, 2 years, however many years, we will have an opportunity to travel to Russia, then come back to learning it. You know, why force yourself doing things that you see pointless right now? And I think that can develop a negative feel for Russian that you don't want to have, I would say. So it's better to take a break, in my opinion, than to force yourself and have no results because you are not really into it at the moment. But overall, to stay motivated, I want to address another reason why a lot of students cannot stay motivated is lack of progress. When we learn a language, let's take Russian, right? You sometimes don't even know if you're making progress or not. So at times it may feel pointless. Okay, I'm doing something wrong because I cannot see myself making progress. I've been learning Russian for a year and I still cannot talk about something very, very basic. That's a lot of the times what I hear from other students. I would say the best thing that I can think of to track your progress and to know that you're making progress, because in my opinion, if you're spending a certain amount of time every day or every other day consistently, you are making progress. You just don't see it. It's just like, if you put a plant on your windowsill, you water it every day, you don't see that it's growing, but it is. Because you see it so frequently. The growth that is very, very minimal day over day over day, it's unnoticeable. It's so small that it feels like it's not even growing. But from my personal experience, I would say that this technique works very, very well. You do something every month as a check-in kind of point. I recommend you speak about something that you did yesterday, you are doing right now, and you will do in the future. Like what I did yesterday, what I am doing today, and what I will do tomorrow, for example. You recorded on the 1st of, let's say, May 1st. You recorded on the 1st of May. A month goes by, June 1st. You listen to your previous recording first, and then record a new one. When you listen back to what you said before, I can guarantee you that in the month of May that you have learned Russian, you will see, oh, I made a mistake right here. Oh, I couldn't say this thought properly, but now I can. You will look back at your own self from last month, and you will realize that you have grown. However small your progress is, you will see it. And also, let's say July 1st, next month, you do the same thing. You can listen to the June 1st recording, or also you can listen to the May 1st recording to see maybe even more contrast with your current state of Russian. When it comes to lack of progress, if you're putting in consistent hours, it's not that you are lacking progress, it's that you are lacking the tracking of progress. And at times it may feel like you're not making it at all. So I would say having something that you do regularly can really help you out a whole lot. Next, freezing up when speaking, especially because of feeling like my vocabulary is not where it should be. That's number 2, second comment. Freezing up when speaking. Oh, what a common struggle, I would say. Trust me, I experienced this firsthand. When I first came into the States after learning learning English for a whole lot, I was lost in New York streets. In New York streets, trying to find my bus station, I was lost. I had the address. It seemed like I was at the right place, but there was no bus station there. It's a regular street with nothing there. Not even like a small bus stop, like a little bit of a cover on top. Nothing was there. And I couldn't come up to speak to anyone, even though I was in this dire situation where I was lost completely. I couldn't come up and speak to anyone. I was so embarrassed. I was so afraid. I would freeze up whenever it's time to come up to someone. I would just simply freeze up. But I dealt with it the hard way. I traveled to a new country, right? And if I didn't speak English, I wouldn't survive. So my instincts kicked in and I had to do it. Now, is that the only way to do it? Heck no. Do I recommend you do that? Do I recommend you travel to Russia or to a Russian-speaking country and you throw yourself in, sink or swim? No, I don't recommend that. Because I was 17. I was young, I wanted to go to study in university, so I went. And I dealt with the consequences. My goal was not to open up my English language speaking. My goal was to get an education. And that was like means to an end, right? So it's not applicable to a lot of you. You may be a bit older and you don't want to travel to a new country. You have a family in the States or in Europe somewhere. You don't want to move to a new country. It doesn't make any sense. What you do to avoid freezing up when speaking is you have to practice speaking on your own. It's a simple skill that we have to practice so that whenever we talk to someone, we don't freeze up because we've done enough practice beforehand that we feel confident that we can speak. Think of speaking as performance. Let's say you're an artist of Russian language, and speaking to a native or to a person is like you're on stage performing what you have learned and your skills. It's not the time for you to practice your Russian. Nobody comes on stage to practice what they have done because people have paid for the tickets. They are there to see you perform, in your best condition. So we have to treat Russian in the same way. And you can practice Russian speaking without having a person in front of you. In fact, I would really recommend you do that because there's no social pressure. You can take your time a bit more. And, it's time for you to practice. It's a safe space. So what you do, in my opinion, and I've seen this work, and I've seen people have tried this, and it really helped them out, is you speak about anything every day. For 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Speak about anything. Just get a topic. Talk about your family. Talk about something very, very basic. You can simply look around yourself in the room, and start describing objects. You can think about, okay, what have I done today? Let me talk about that. So you talk about things that are around you or what you did every day for 2 to 3 minutes. It doesn't have to be a whole hour, nothing like that. 2 to 3 minutes, you talk about something that you have done. What you can also do is you can recall the most recent conversation that you had with someone in English or, not in Russian, okay? And you try to redo it in Russian and see how far you can go. Let's say I went to the pharmacy, yesterday, and I bought eye drops. And here's what I said to the person at the pharmacy. I came up to the window and I said, "Do you have eye drops?" "Yes, which ones would you like?" I said, "Just the regular eye drops, not the medical ones, but just the lubricant ones. My eyes feel a bit dry, that's all I need." "Okay, we have these two brands, Spanish brand, German brand. Which one would you prefer?" I said, "I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. I have no idea what they do. Which one is the best for its price?" "Oh, they do the same exact thing. It's just this one is more expensive, this one is cheaper." I said, "Well, I'll take the cheapest one. Here you go. Here's your total. Cash or card?" "Card." "Thank you. Have a good day." If I were to say the same exact thing in Russian, would I be able to do that? Yes or no? What would be the things that I would freeze up on because I couldn't know how to answer? Maybe it's something that I wouldn't understand when they spoke to me. You record the most recent conversation and you try to do it in Russian and see how far you can go. And time after time after time of those small conversations, you learn the words that you don't know. You practice your speaking. So next time you go speaking to that same cashier about the eye drops, you are well prepared. It wouldn't make sense for you to freeze up if you know, okay, anything that they say, I will understand because I've done this 10 times, 20 times. So I think freezing up comes from lack of practice, lack of confidence in your own abilities because you haven't done this frequently. As learners, it's easy for us to hide behind the books or the screens, the phone screens, computer screens, YouTube videos, all of that. But when it comes to actual interaction, we don't do that because that's a very uncommon, not obvious thing to do, right? It's obvious for us to watch a YouTube video if you're struggling with something, but it's not so obvious for us to go in and practice speaking. But I do recommend, if you're listening right now and you're struggling with speaking, every time you practice your Russian, before you do anything, speak for 2 minutes about what you did yesterday, what you're doing today, and your plans for tomorrow. 2 minutes. Do that over a month. And then come back to me and say how you did. Stick to this for a whole month. I challenge you today. And I can guarantee you that in a month's time, you will not even recognize how well you can speak. You wouldn't be able to even predict how good you can speak after a whole month of practice on a daily basis. I'm telling you. It's a simple thing that you can do that has tremendous results. Because I can also guarantee you that you have a lot of vocabulary and a lot of grammar knowledge already in your subconscious that when you will start speaking more frequently, it will emerge. It will come up. And you will surprise yourself by how much you know already. Okay? Do that for me, and I really think that you have a lot of progress. The second part of this comment was that freezing up because of lack of vocabulary. Of course, vocabulary has a whole different, I guess, learning approach to it. Speaking is not the same thing. So for now, it's just simply a big topic of vocabulary. We're not going to spend this podcast talking about it. So I just simply go on to the next comment here. I find it difficult to construct a sentence and also find difficulty in pronunciation and memorization. So 3 things here. Difficulty in constructing a sentence, in pronunciation, and memorization. Let's start with the latter one. How do you memorize the words that you're learning? There's many things that you can do to practice the new words that you learn. I truly recommend is the best approach in my opinion. I haven't come across anything that is better, and that is flashcards. Study flashcards. Put your new words into flashcard decks and study them every day. Flashcards are great because they work on your multiple levels of vocabulary. They work on your short-term and long-term memory, not vocabulary, but memory. Short-term memory and long-term memory. Let's say you see this new word, let's say it's the word mед, honey, right? Mед. I can guarantee you that if I ask you right now, how do you say honey in Russian? Without any pauses, bam, mед. Easy. I just mentioned it, and you can say it back to me easily because it's in your short-term memory. Let's say if I ask you about this honey toward the end of this podcast, I think half of you guys will forget it. And you can imagine the same thing happening tomorrow and in a week and in a month. So how do you make sure that whenever you get a new word, that you can retain it right now, in an hour, in a day, in a week, in a month? You simply practice it many, many times. And flashcards do that for you automatically, especially if you have a good flashcard app. I use Enki for myself, Anki, Enki. And there's a whole bunch of flashcard decks online. We also post them sometimes on our YouTube videos, under our YouTube videos, on our platform if you're in class, all of that. You can borrow somebody else's decks and simply practice them without having to build your own. But flashcards really help a lot with vocabulary and how to retain vocabulary for a long time. Then we have pronunciation. Now, pronunciation is a skill. It's a simple skill. It's like, like working out. Pronunciation is one of the parts of your Russian. It's like a muscle that you simply get better at with practice. There's not much that I can say, okay, do this for your pronunciation, outside of just simply say words out loud, and you will develop the muscles in your mouth, different positions of your mouth. And over time, it's going to become easier and easier and easier to pronounce Russian words. That's really it. There's not much, there's no magic trick to it. There's no really good advice when it comes to pronunciation. And then lastly, we have, I find it difficult to construct a sentence. This is also a muscle. It's a practical thing that we have to do to speak better. In languages, there's theory and there's practice. Theory is grammar. Practice is everything else. Vocabulary, I would say, is also like a practical skill. It's not really a theoretical skill. So all of those things, it's like a muscle. We have to practice it. And for us to get better at it, we have to practice it. And to make a sentence, to construct a sentence from the words that you know, is also a muscle. It's also a skill that is developed by practicing. When you say, I find it difficult to make a sentence in Russian, it's the same thing as saying, I find it difficult to do a pull-up. You can come up to any coach, any fitness coach, and he will say, okay, for you to do a pull-up, you have to do a pull-up. Or do a similar exercise. Maybe it's a pull-up, but somebody is helping you up a little bit to get some of your body weight off of your back, right? To make it easier. So it's the same exact thing here. If you find it difficult to make a sentence, make it with the help of something. Make it with the help of a translator. Make it with the help of a person. Let's say you want to talk about, what you did yesterday, right? So you just think for yourself. You try to do it like a pull-up. You try to pull up on the bar by yourself first to see if you can do it. If you cannot make a sentence by yourself, then okay, what can I do? Let's say I want to talk about the past and say, today I woke up at 8 a.m. That whole sentence, let's say you don't know how to say it by yourself. You're missing some words. But you do know how to say today, and you know how to say I, and you know how to say 8. So today I ate. Not ate like food, but today I ate with a number. Today сегодня. I is я, and 8 is 8. But I don't know how to say woke up, and I don't know how to say AM. Let me look it up. You look up those words, and then you put them in your sentence, and here you have a sentence that is partially made by you and partially made by translators. And then you look at the sentence and you try to retain the whole sentence. Maybe jot down the individual words or the whole phrase altogether. So if you were to make it again next day, you can say it properly. So it's just like a muscle. You practice it. You practice making sentences by yourself without any help at first. to see how well you can do, and then you maybe use a translator or a native speaker to help you out. And you have to simply practice it over and over and over again. And, making a sentence is not a theory topic, it's a practical topic. Next comment was grammar and finding people to whom to practice with, or with whom to practice. Okay. Grammar and finding people with whom I can practice my horrible Russian. Okay. Well, grammar, I would say grammar has the most amount of resources online. If you find something difficult to talk about, let's say it's past tense, you can always look it up. I don't think that you would need any additional advice on grammar besides just simply practicing it a bit more if you find that that's what's limiting your expression. But then finding people to speak Russian with, I really recommend, well, in fact, any language exchange app is going to be good, but my top preferred one is Tandem. Tandem seems to have the most filtering of people who are coming in, because with language exchange it's easy to experience a lot of the dating things on the language exchange app, but Tandem seems to work the best when it comes to filtering its users. So if you find it difficult to speak to someone or finding a person to speak to, I recommend language exchange apps, and Tandem is my top priority. Tandem, Tandem, Tandem. I struggle with listening without reading along, but I know that will come in time. When I speak without, and then the second part, okay, let's stop here and talk about listening without reading. So if you're watching a movie, you always read the subtitles. It simply means that your listening is not as good as your reading or as your vocabulary. You cannot, when you listen to, let's say it's a movie and they're speaking and you read along, when you read along, you understand pretty well. But without the subtitles, you get lost. It's because your listening is simply not on the same level as your reading. But that is a very common thing. A lot of the times when we listen, the words blend into one. Let's say if I said, "Я тебя люблю," I love you, right? "Я тебя люблю." When you read a sentence, you have the spaces. "Я," space, "тебя," space, "люблю." So you can look at them and see, oh, I think I've seen this word before. I think I've heard this used somewhere else. But when I say "Я тебя люблю," you don't know where one word stops, the second one starts. So it's harder to distinguish them from one another. So to go back to what we said before, listening is just like one of those skills. So I recommend, when it comes to listening, is you have to find a good balance between understanding what you're listening to and not understanding it. If you understand 100% of the text or of the movie or of the song, it's not challenging enough for you to grow in your listening. But when you understand like 5%, it's not easy enough. It's not easy enough for you to understand, let's say, like a little bit of it, and then figure out the rest from context. So you have to find a middle ground where you are you're challenged in your listening, but it's not too hard to where you have nothing to really grasp upon and make progress from. I would say a good percentage is 20 to 50% of the material. If you understand it by listening, it's a great material. And if you don't understand something when you listen to it, but you do understand it when you read it, it means that you have the vocabulary, but you don't have the listening level developed just yet. So I would say lower the level of that material. If you're watching a movie, watch a cartoon instead. If you're watching a cartoon that is a bit more for grown kids, watch a cartoon that is for young kids, like for infants almost, right? There is one that we have on Be Fluent class translated, all of that. I think 50 or 60 episodes is Малышарики. In English, I think you can look it up by Baby Ricky, Baby, and then Riki. Okay, I think it's English translation. And it's for kids, as they say themselves, people who meet it, it's for kids from 0 to 4 years old, I would say. Of course, it's all in Russian. So it's going to be very basic vocabulary. They'll speak very slowly and enunciate every single word. It's a great resource for us learners to really get better at our listening with, okay? And then the second part is when I speak without preparation, it's making sure I use the correct case. So speaking in cases. I would make it more general and say messing up in grammar when speaking. I have a pretty strong stance on this, and I really think that thinking about grammar when you speak is wrong, is not productive. You don't think about grammar when you speak. When you speak, let it flow. Just let it flow. However it comes out, it comes out. But think of grammar when you write down the sentences, when you're practicing that grammar rule. Now, if you're speaking and you mess up on cases, do not try to fix them right away as you are speaking. Take a mental note about it, still let it flow like it does, and then go back to when you study Russian, and then you focus on cases. The reason why I think that is because whenever we speak, there is no time to think about everything. There's no time for us to think about all the rules and endings of cases for us to make them proper, okay, or make the proper ending. It's simply not enough time. So don't even worry about the grammar as you speak. When you speak, it's more of like check-in of the whole Russian skill as a whole, I would say. But then, if you find that you make a lot of mistakes in cases, whenever you study Russian, that's when you take care of it. You can never get better at cases as you are speaking. You know, there's not enough time for us to properly analyze and get better at it live as we're saying something. Just simply drop it. Trust your learning. Trust your current knowledge. And simply just let it flow. Let it come out however it comes out. Okay? And another thought is that it's very easy for us to notice our mistakes in cases. Because cases is such a complicated topic. It's such a complex with different endings, exceptions, patterns. There's so many patterns that we have to memorize and understand that until you are super advanced in Russian, you are going to be making mistakes in cases. That is just simply unavoidable. That's a fact. I would say maybe like you have to spend like 500 active hours practicing all the exceptions, all the rules, until it becomes automatic with your cases. That's a long time. If you think about it, that's an hour every day for a year and a half almost. Well, for some it may be less, for some it may be more, but it's such a complicated topic that it requires so much time. So don't worry about making mistakes in cases. No native will find it like funny or embarrassing that you don't know cases. Trust me, because we do speak to other people who maybe not so good at Russian, who speak Russian, and cases are never an obstacle between me understanding you. Cases never are a problem. When you speak, when you use the wrong word, that can be a problem. But cases, never. Okay? So don't overthink cases at the same time. But if you do want to make them better, you practice them outside of your speaking practice. Okay? Next, we have, it's a similar comment. I can't seem to manage the cases when speaking, but I can when writing. Well, that's because you have more time to think whenever you write. I've practiced a lot too. It's not automatic or intuitive for me and just makes me feel embarrassed to speak. Like I just said, cases will never become an issue between a person understanding you or not. And the reason why you can use cases correctly whenever you write stuff is because you have more time to think. And the more comfortable you become with cases through writing, you will also develop the same thing with speaking. Because you know the patterns, you know the rules, because you can do it when writing. It's just that it's not so automatic whenever you speak because you don't have that time. Okay? It's just, I think with time is going to become easier and easier for you. Listening without captions, same thing. We already answered that. And I can't speak freely because I sometimes use wrong cases. Okay, cases with speaking 3 comments in a row, same thing, just take your time. Finding other people who speak Russian fluently to converse with me. I'm an A1 beginner with minimal judgment but maximal tutelage. I'm doubting such a person exists. For this comment, I would say 100% they exist. Because on the other side of the world, there's a person who is also as embarrassed in their English as you are in your Russian. So you'll be on the same level when it comes to the second languages of each other. So you can find a person, and trust me, a lot of people who have gone through our programs, like let's say Be Fluent Camp. In Be Fluent Camp, tandem and language exchange is a big part of our learning. We do encourage everybody to find a person to speak to if they don't have it in their life. And however apprehensive you are at first, however kind of like if you don't believe that it's going to work out, trust me, a lot of people said, oh, it's not for me. I'm not a sociable person. I'm not a person who can talk easily with strangers. Every single person found a perfect partner for themselves. So just don't go in it thinking, oh, it's impossible. And it will happen for you as well. I'm telling you, there's always somebody who can help you out just as well as you can help them out. And it can form a beautiful connection between you two when it comes to just pushing each other to learn better. And lastly, we have a comment in Russian. Иногда я затрудняюсь ответить на вопросы и не помню те слова, которые я хочу сказать на русском. Занимаюсь языком на кампусе и на компьютере, а не дома. Okay. Well, the comment was, I find it hard to answer questions because I cannot recall the words that I need or want to say. For this comment, I would say if whenever you speak, you seem to forget the words that you want to say, but you know that you have learned them before, is because you haven't practiced them enough. Like that word for honey. In fact, let's check. Can you tell me the word for honey that I have mentioned halfway through the podcast? I'm listening. Okay, the word was мед. Maybe you have learned the word for honey, you have heard it once, but you haven't practiced it enough for it to be in your subconscious. You have read it once, you have not put it in your Anki flashcards and studied it maybe like 3 times, 4 times, so it can be in your subconscious kind of memory now, or long-term memory. The way it works is that let's say you learn a new word. The rate with which you forget that word is very fast if you only saw it once. Now, let's say you learned the word мед today, you see it again tomorrow. Then, when you see it again the next day, you get reminded of that word again. The rate of forgetting the word slows down. So you forget it slower, I would say. That's how you should think about it. It would be great if I could show you the visuals of this, like graphs and things like that, but I can't right now. Then let's say another 2 days goes by, 2 days go by, and then you see the word мед again. Now the rate of you forgetting that word is even slower. So the more frequently you see that word, the better it's going to be, and the less struggles you will have with your vocabulary when you speak. And that's all the comments that we have gotten on our Telegram channel. If you want to participate in similar kind of question Q&A things, then join our Telegram channel. The link is going to be in the description to this podcast. But if you need help with your Russian, to take a bit more of a structural approach to it, check out our Be Fluent class, also with the link in the description. We, have a whole bunch of courses, exercises for past, present tense, for cases, all of that. Check it all out with the link in the description. And I'll see you next time. Пока-пока.